Have you ever faked someone's death to save their life? In my family, you were either Christian and white, or you were a stain that had to be scrubbed out. My family worshipped God so much, I grew up hearing that non-believers and the wrong kind of people deserved what they got, like fire, loss, misery, because that's what happens to those God hates. They especially loved talking about saving souls, so when Chris lost his family in a fire and they took him in, they went around saying they would have first-class tickets to heaven. People in town fell all over their act saying, "Bless you for taking in that little black boy." What my parents never mentioned, though, was that Chris would have to eat scraps from our plates and sometimes went to bed hungry for days. Dad put him to work before dawn, scrubbing floors and cleaning out the barn, and if he ever got it wrong, he got locked outside until he learned respect. Sometimes I'd see Dad watch old movies about plantations and say those folks had the right idea about how to keep a boy in line. When I turned 24, Dad laid out his will and told me I'd get the house, all our money and his successful company, but only if I sent Chris away. He made the idea sound so generous, saying, "There's a special school for boys like him. It's time for Chris to learn discipline with his own kind," and showed me a brochure for the boot camp. I knew about that boot camp. It was where teachers harmed kids if they talked with an accent or used any word that wasn't proper English. They lined the boys up and forced them to repeat Bible verses for hours, and if anyone slipped, they'd get dragged to the basement. There were chains there, wearing them while listening to sermons about how they'd never be worth saving unless they learned to hate where they came from. I played along for weeks, acting like I agreed. Dad started inviting me to his meetings with the estate lawyers and let me sit in at dinners with the big donors. He was all smiles, thinking he'd finally get rid of Chris and go back to being the perfect white Christian family. Meanwhile, I needed money, so I started selling off some of Dad's older antiques and rare collectibles, stashing the money wherever I could, and telling Dad I was liquidating assets to modernize the estate next year. He didn't care as long as the accounts balanced and the garden parties stayed impressive. When I finally had enough of the fake smiles and racist rhetoric, I packed Chris's clothes, gave him a fake ID, cash, and an address for a youth center. On the drive there, he asked me if I was scared of getting caught. I just told him he deserved better and heard him muffling his cries the entire car ride. When we arrived, I hugged him as hard as I could and told him to call me when he got settled. He wiped his eyes and promised he would. Back home, Dad went ballistic. He called the sheriff, the pastor, anyone who would listen. He told everyone Chris had run off with company money and that I was covering for him. Mom cried in the kitchen saying they didn't raise me to be like those people. Dad wasn't about to let things go and hired a private investigator who he told, "Find him. The only place that N-word belongs in is that boot camp." I waited until midnight to drive to the quarry, taking Chris's hoodie with his name embroidered and his watch with me. I tossed the hoodie down by the rocks, ground it into the dirt so it picked up streaks of mud and old oil from the quarry machines. I tore the sleeve and rubbed it against the jagged stone until it looked like it had been caught or dragged. I snapped the watch band and left it there too, right where you'd think someone slipped. Back at the house, I copied Chris's handwriting letter for letter, making every line sound desperate and hopeless. "I'm tired. I can't take it anymore. I'm done living." Then I drove out of the county and mailed the note from a gas station. When the police showed up with the letter and the hoodie, the whole mansion went silent. Dad told the cops Chris had always been troubled, said the world was better off. People at church said God's will was done, and after 2 days, everyone moved on from his death. Chris called after a month sounding tired but happy. He said the youth center was rough at first, but he'd found a job at a bakery and started night classes. He made actual friends there and finally felt like he belonged. I joked that he was literally dead to us and that Dad gave up looking for him. He laughed a real happy laugh for the first time in forever. The more we talked, the more I could hear real hope in his voice. Now it's been 6 years, and Chris and I opened our own bakery in a city where no one knows my family, our past, or the price we paid to get here.